Welcome to the Excuse Smashers podcast.
Hey, this is Tim Kaufman. Thank you so much for joining me as I talk to some of the most amazing people on the planet about excuses and why they didn't let excuses hold them back from a plant-based lifestyle. So sit down, buckle up, and hang on as my guests show you how to
Smash excuses.
I think we're on. Okay, welcome, and I am so excited about today's guest. This is Andrew Taylor, aka Spud-Fit. He's a super big inspiration. He doesn't know this, but he's one of my plant-based heroes, and it is such a pleasure to have him. So thank you so much for being here, Andrew.
Thank you, and same goes. You're one of my plant-based heroes too. So yeah, thanks for the kind words, and right back at you.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. So, like we do every show, if you could just take 5 minutes and just tell us just what the plant-based lifestyle has done to your life.
It's what hasn't it done? It's a 180-degree change for me since I went plant-based, whole food plant-based, and that started for me with only potatoes. And now it's progressed on to what I call a whole food spud-based diet rather than whole food plant-based, because I still eat a lot of potatoes. But yeah, basically I was overweight, a big time overweight. I was 151.7 kilos when I started, and that's I think 336 pounds. So not as big as some of the guys you've had on, but yeah, still far too big for me. Yeah, I started all this potato-only year-long challenge because I realized I was a food addict. And I think a lot of people that are overweight have the same issue. So what I decided was that if an alcoholic or a drug addict or any other kind of addict, if they were best served to treat their addiction by quitting entirely, then perhaps a food addict would be the same. Maybe a food addict should quit food. And obviously you can't quit food. We know that you need food. So the next thought was that perhaps if I quit everything except one food, then that would be as close as possible to treating food addiction with abstinence in the same way an alcoholic or drug addict would treat their addiction. So after a lot of research, over the course of about 6 weeks, I won't go into too much detail about that, but I figured out, I didn't figure out, but the evidence made the decision for me that potatoes were the best choice. So I went about quitting food for a year and eating only potatoes, and yeah, it totally changed my life. I lost 55 kilos, which is I think about 120 pounds in the year. I was dealing with clinical depression and anxiety before I started. You know, my life was in really, really bad shape, and for me, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. Just things were on a slippery downward slope in my life, and yeah, I couldn't be happier. That for me is the number one thing that happened over the year, was that clinical depression and anxiety stopped dominating my life, and yeah, that's really cool. And I could talk for a long time about the ways this has changed my life, but they're the two big things. I overcame my food addiction. I hesitate to say that, you know, it's done with, you know, I've beaten it. I don't think you ever truly beat an addiction, but I'm on top of it. I'm happy to say that I'm on top of it and in control of it, and I don't deal with my depression anymore. And then of course the added beautiful side effect of you know, losing weight and getting fit.
Right. How about like any like medical? Did you like cholesterol or any metabolic number stuff? Did it affect that?
Yeah, my cholesterol was high. I can't remember exact numbers, but it wasn't dangerously high, but it was going up, you know. I was, but that came down now to the point where you know, if you've read Dr. Esselstyn's book, what was it, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, I'm now, my cholesterol is now below the number that he would call heart attack proof. So yeah, that was pretty cool, and that happened in only I think in 3 months, my cholesterol.
Wow.
I had blood tests every 3 months. So between the first and the second one, it had come right down. My blood pressure was a little bit high, and that came way down again. All of my markers, everything that we measured, just got better and better in each blood test throughout the year. Everything's good. So.
And then one last thing. I know you have a family, and can you just talk a little bit about, did it have any effect on your relationship with your wife and kids?
Well, my boy, when I started the potato only thing, he was only 2. So, for him, he didn't even know what was going on. Towards the end of the year, I remember maybe around October when he started to figure out what was going on, and we were at a little playground where there was a toy kitchen, and he was pretending to cook potatoes for me. And that was the first indication I got that he was aware of what was happening, because he was making all this different imaginary stuff for his mum and just making potatoes for me. So that's about as far as the impact goes on him. And my wife was super supportive throughout. She was well aware of my struggles, and she actually was the one that diagnosed me with clinical depression and anxiety before anyone else, and before including myself. She was the one that suggested I needed to get help because I was depressed and anxious, and I thought she was crazy, and that, I'm a big tough man. I don't get depressed and anxious.
Right.
And then So anyway, the long story short, she was been 100% behind me since I've known her, and she didn't eat only potatoes. Neither of them ate only potatoes, but they definitely ate a lot more potatoes than they would have otherwise. But,
right, but
they were just supportive. Yeah.
So, but like after you made the transition, is your relationship any different with your wife?
It's better. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I got no hesitation to say that I gave 100% of myself to being a good husband and a good father, and did everything I could in that way. But the simple fact is that 100% then is not as good as 100% is now.
Exactly.
So I'm a better husband and a better father, just because these days there's more available to give. So
that's oh my gosh, that's perfect. Yeah, because I had kind of the same thing. I mean, Heather and I never had like a terrible relationship, but to see how much better it is now, and same. I mean, I did what I could do, what I was able to do, but now I'm able to do so much more that it's just night and day. Okay, so this is called the Excuse Smasher, so we're here to smash an excuse, and
let's smash it. Bring the hammer.
This is actually the first time I'm being kind of sarcastic, because this excuse is not even worth smashing because it's total BS. But I hear this one all the time, that people think that just because there's, it's plant-based means it's going to be boring and repetitious, which I already know that's not true. But we're going to play along with the excuse. So I've heard this excuse before. I can't go plant-based because there's not enough variety. So my first question for you is, why do you think I asked you to smash this excuse?
Well, that's I basically did a whole year of eating only potatoes. So I probably hesitate to say it, but I'm probably the world's leading expert on eating a variety-less diet.
Yeah.
At least in the Western world. I'm sure there are people in third world countries who are more qualified than me, but as far as the Western world goes, I think I've got that title.
I believe you are right. So the first thing I want to talk about is this whole variety issue. Can you give us some examples, like real life examples of how this excuse challenged you, whether it's mentally or physically or whatever? Just talk about how it challenged you.
Yeah. First of all, though, I want to just talk a little bit about variety itself. And I think variety, for a lot of people, myself included, can be a problem. So the first thing I would like people to think about is that you think of not having variety as a problem, and perhaps there's a chance for you, like it was for me, that variety is in this current moment is causing problems for you. So, that's just something to think about. I think shows like, do you have MasterChef in the US?
Yeah.
I think shows like MasterChef have a lot to answer to, in that they make us think that every meal, every eating experience has to be this, this gastronomic experience that's just out of this world flavors all the time, and people are expecting that for every meal, and perhaps that could cause problems for people. On the other hand, though, I think, now that I'm not eating potatoes only anymore, I'm eating whole food plant-based diet with a lot of potatoes, but the variety in my diet these days is more than it was before, much more. Yeah. My go-to meals before I started eating whole food plant-based was pizza, chips, burgers, probably it. If my wife knew if we went to a restaurant that most of the time I would just say, I don't need the menu, I know what I want, before I even walked in the door.
Right.
But variety is, there's like I said, two sort of areas to think about. Number one is that there's plenty of variety. When you take these small number of ingredients out of the equation, it frees your mind to start thinking about all this plethora of other stuff that you could be adding in. So right. I think getting rid of those limiting beliefs or those limiting ingredients will really open the world up to you.
For sure. So can you think of any examples of how that, just eating potatoes challenged you? And think back to the beginning, the first few weeks of what did that feel like? What were some of the, when you passed food in the store or whatever, what happened?
Yeah, well, the first 2 weeks of my potato only challenge, the Spud-Fit challenge, was the hardest thing I've done in my life. It was really, really hard. And, dealing with cravings for whatever I was eating at the time was, it was really hard. And the biggest challenge for me was that I think it was emotional immaturity, basically. The challenge was that I had spent my whole life using food to deal with my emotions and to comfort me and give me emotional support. And suddenly I was in this situation where food wasn't comforting anymore. It was bland, boring food, and it wasn't, didn't regulate my emotions the way that I was used to. So, that was the most challenging bit, because, when I got home from a hard day and I would normally eat a box of ice cream, and that would not necessarily, I can see now that it didn't make me feel better, but at the time I thought it did.
Yeah.
And then what would I do with those emotions if I couldn't squash them down with ice cream? So that first couple of weeks was the hardest bit, was that dealing with the emotions. And then the second hardest bit was surviving the cravings, basically. So I learned I learned a few different ways, different sort of strategies and techniques that I could use to just get myself through when the cravings came. And then after a couple of weeks, things settled down and I got into a groove. Do you want me to tell you a couple of the strategies I used?
We'll get there in a minute or two.
Yeah,
here,
okay.
But so what, when you sat down to eat at home, was it a challenge to see because I actually went through this. Well, my wife wasn't plant-based when I first started. Was it hard for you to see her eating something that wasn't potatoes? Was that hard to eat with her?
Yeah, in the first couple of weeks, and it was something where I didn't want to put anything on my wife. I didn't want it to be her responsibility. I wanted to. It was all on me. It was right. She didn't have the same problems I did, so I didn't want her to be having to go through the same things I was going through when she didn't need to. So, it was hard for the first couple of weeks to sit and eat with her and with my boy when they were eating things that I really wanted to be eating, but knew that I shouldn't. So, I got through it there.
How about going to work? What did that look like, only being able to eat potatoes?
I hated it. I'm a teacher, and every day it seems like every day it's somebody's birthday, or there's some sort of there's something to celebrate. So lunchtime, the staff room table is always full of cookies and cupcakes and
Right.
you know, whatever else. Yeah, I hated that. For that first couple of weeks, I hated that. And I only went into the staff room a couple of times, and then I was like, this just, not that I was worried that I would break and eat something. It was just, it got me in a bad mood being in the staff room around that food. I knew I wouldn't eat any of it, but I also knew that it just got me in a bad mood. So for that first couple of weeks, I just went for a walk at lunchtime. After I'd been a couple of times and realized it was a bad idea, I just went walking instead.
Yeah, just add in frustration and aggravation, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting progression, though, because in that first couple of weeks, it made me angry that I was sitting there, everyone else was eating this delicious food that I wanted. After a couple of weeks, I got to the point where it didn't bother me. It was like, yeah, those people are eating that junk and I'm eating mine. And it was like, whatever, there's not really any emotion attached to it. And I noticed, I think it was after about 5 months, I went into the lunchroom at someone's birthday and the feeling came up that I actually felt sorry for the people that were eating that junk.
Wow.
And I was like, when that happened, I was like, wow, this is a change, because I'd just been indifferent to it, and then suddenly I was like, these poor people don't know what they're missing out on.
Oh
you know?
My gosh, dude, you're in my head. Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing how that progression works. So the last thing I want to talk about is, you talked about challenges, and those are definitely some valid challenges. They could actually stop anyone's processes. Kudos to you, man. I can't believe it. It's crazy. But can you talk about some of the... I can't believe it either. What's that?
I can't believe it either. Yeah, it's from where I came from to do that. It was like I said, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I'm really, obviously it was worth it.
For sure. And the lives that you're affecting now, for me, that makes everything worth. I would do it 10 times over to know the impact that I would have, and you're in the same position, I'm sure. But so I want to talk 100%. For a couple minutes about some of the tools that you use, and they might be physical tools, or actually maybe how you trained your brain to get over some of these challenges. And if you could give us some hardcore tools that people could take away from this, it would be awesome.
Yeah, so for me, 90% of it is about psychology, so I'll stick with that to start with. My first little strategy that I came up with was to always, 24 hours a day, have potatoes with me. And, if you're not doing potatoes only, then it could just be whole food, plant-based food. It could be a bunch of bananas or, a can of baked beans or whatever, just healthy food. But for me, it was potatoes. Always have ready potatoes with me so that when a craving comes, there's not that flicker of time where I go, well, it's going to take me an hour before I get home and I can cook potatoes. I'll just stop and get some food. I've always got potatoes with me. And there was a number of times where I was on the way home from work and I pulled in at McDonald's and stopped in the car park there and thought, I've just had enough of these potatoes. I'm just going to go in and get some McDonald's. And I came up with this little strategy to go with that. That was, rather than telling myself I will never eat fast food or junk food again, or even for the whole year, I'm never going to eat it for the year. That was really daunting for me. What I did was I'm in the car now and I've got my potatoes here. So there you go. I'm walking the talk here. But I would tell myself that, no problem, you can go in and have McDonald's. You're allowed to. I'll give myself permission to do that. But before I do that, I have to eat my big box of potatoes that I got with me. And I'm not allowed to go in and get any other food until I finish that big box of potatoes. So I'd sit in my car and stuff my face and trying to, I just need to get these potatoes gone so that I can go in and get the food that I really want. And every single time, without fail, by the time I'd finished my big box of potatoes, I wasn't interested in any other food. So, that was the biggest thing for me, that even if it don't feel like the healthy food, just fill yourself up and then see how you feel.
Yeah.
And the number of times I've taught this to a lot of people, and I've not heard anybody come back and say, yeah, they filled themselves up on potatoes and then still had ice cream afterwards. It doesn't seem to happen that way. So, yeah, that was my number one thing. The second thing, have you seen the film The Matrix?
It was a long time ago. Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a scene in that which I used a lot as well. So there's this scene where Neo, the main character, gets in a car with Trinity, and they start driving away. And instantly, as soon as they start driving away, the guy in the front seat turns around, pulls a gun on Neo. And then another guy gets this machine out, and they're trying to get a bug out of him and stuff. And it's all just, everything's happening at once, and it's too much. And Neo says, stop the car, I'm getting out. And he stops the car and opens the door, and the camera looks down this long, dark alleyway. It's raining. It's just long, straight, dark road. The street lights are on, and there's just rain, and it's just depressing. And he goes to get out of the car and leave. And Trinity grabs his hand and says, trust me, Neo. And Neo says, why? Trinity says, because you've been down that road before, you know where it leads, and I know that's not where you want to go. And that scene stuck in my head a lot. So, yeah, then, of course, he closes the door, gets back in the car, and they drive away. So I thought about that scene a lot. When I had these cravings for a cookie or whatever, I would remind myself of that scene and tell myself, I've been down this road before. Every time I've ever done a diet, I've done, who knows, you're probably the same. I've done so many diets in my life, and I've done well, and I've lost 10 kilos, 20 pounds, whatever, and then I have one bit of chocolate cake, and then it all falls to pieces.
Right.
And then all the weight comes back on. So I would tell myself, one cookie is not one cookie. I've been down that road before. I know that one cookie is going to lead to 10 cookies. I know that that's going to lead to the weight coming all back on. I know it's going to be the top of a slippery slope that's just going to ruin the whole thing for me. And I've been down that road before. I know where it leads, and I know that's not where I want to be. And I just repeat that scene in my head and just understand fully that I can't do that one thing, you know. Right. An alcoholic can't have just one beer and then go back to being sober. You know, a gambling addict can't just go and have one day at the races betting and then they're done. Like, I'm an addict, and this is the situation. I have to accept that if I have that one slice of cake, I'm going to have most of the rest of the cake, and then I'm going to do it again tomorrow and the next day. So
and rationalize every bite on the way through.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and every step along the way, you genuinely believe that you're making the right choice.
Yeah.
You know,
this time of year it's funny because this time of year is always a reminder to me with the Halloween candies. We have never lived in a place where we get any trick-or-treaters, but for some reason we used to buy 10 pounds of the mini candy bars. And it, like, seriously, I would take them to work, the whole bag, and I would tell myself, like, all the other teachers could have them in their room, like, have the candy for the kids, like these big barrels of candy, and I could never do that, but I would promise myself this time I'm only going to have 2 a day. Yeah. And then by 10 o'clock, I look, and the entire garbage can is full of wrappers, and then you feel like crap. And but every one of them, I would tell myself a reason why I should eat that one, you know? So
yeah.
So it sounds like so two super good tools. It sounds like be prepared physically with the potatoes, but then also be prepared mentally for that battle. I mean, you got to stay mentally tough through this. So one tool that I'm just totally being selfish about this because I'm dying to know this, but did you have any ways that you could make the potato not seem so boring? I mean, were you able to eat it and say, oh, this is better than it was yesterday because I did something? Like, did you do anything like that?
Yeah, so 90% of what I ate was on purpose. I was trying to keep it boring and, you know, uninteresting on purpose because I wanted to force myself to retrain my brain. Because like I said, I was turning to food for comfort, enjoyment, emotional support, and I thought I was getting all those things, but really I wasn't. So my whole point was that I wanted to keep it boring so that I'd be forced to learn other ways to get comfort, enjoyment, emotional support in my life. So that's the number one thing to remember. Having said that, 90% of my meals were either mashed or boiled or baked potatoes, really plain, really boring. But maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month, I would do something a little bit more interesting. So my favorite thing, I'll tell you my favorite recipe that I did, which is really, really simple. I just boil some potatoes, boil them until they're soft, and you can stick a sharp knife that just goes in and out, nice and easy. And then put them on the waffle iron. You got to get a non-stick waffle iron so you don't need oil. Put them on the waffle iron, squash it flat, and then, and then cook it for about 15, 20 minutes. And then you've got a beautiful, crispy, amazing potato waffle. They're the best. That's still my favorite. They're really, really good. And the other thing is an air fryer. Because you got this little device called an air fryer, and you don't need any oil, and you can just cut the potatoes into chips, put them in the air fryer, and granted they're not quite as good as your typical deep fried hot chips, but they're pretty good. They go a long way to replacing deep fried hot chips. They're really good.
I found out that through the past couple years that they might not be as good, but if you eat them enough, you don't know any different. And I think it's hilarious because I would get so excited. Like I find something that tastes just like something I used to eat, and somebody will come over. I'm like, you got to taste this cashew cream. It tastes literally just like queso sauce. And they'll taste it and they'll look at me and like, when's the last time you had queso sauce, man? But listen,
I've got to say that I didn't have an air fryer last year. For the whole potato challenge, I didn't have my own air fryer. So I only got it this year. So as far as getting through the potato challenge, that didn't help me because I didn't have one. But I did have a waffle maker. So,
that's awesome.
That was cool.
So, look, I don't want to take any more of your time, and I want to try to keep this short, but I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you for being here. I know people are going to get so much out of this. There's so much to unpack. In fact, I'm going to do another thing that I've never done on this. I'm gonna turn this off, and I'm actually I want to unpack a couple things that you talked on. I think I don't want to leave it go. So, but thank you so much for being here, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, man.
No, thanks so much for having me, and thanks for everything you do as well. I know your life's just getting busy right now, and things are getting crazy. But I really love your message. I love your, can I swear? Your no bullshit attitude. I think it's I just love it. So
that's awesome.
Good on you, and thanks for doing what you do too.
Yeah, it's so cool. We're all kind of doing the same thing, and I love what we get to do, man. We're so fortunate, you know.
Yeah.
All right, man. Have a good one. So there you go, right from Australia. It was so cool that Andrew took some time out of his day. It's so weird. It's our dinner time, but it's his morning, and he's in tomorrow. And he's 2 seasons in front of us. The whole thing blows my mind, and I don't understand it, but I am so glad we got to chat. I kind of made a joke out of this one about the variety thing, kind of being sarcastic. And the truth is, last week I did a little hunting around, and I found out that there are over 20,000 edible plants on the planet. So there's variety, and that's why I say I'm being sarcastic. And when people take animal products out of their diet, they're eliminating, I don't know, 6, maybe 4 regular things that they would normally eat. But you have 20,000 options compared to the 6. And, I mean, I'm not going to do the percentage, but seriously, my diet consists of pizza, wings, french fries, fast food. That's it. Maybe a fish fry once in a while. I had no variety before. And now, my food is so colorful and everything. So it was just so cool to put that kind of spin on it, of eating potatoes for an entire year. And you know, the one cool thing about it is I think what Andrew was really trying to do is focus on that food addiction. And food doesn't have to be this exciting event that your whole day you look forward to it. In fact, wouldn't you agree that there's so many other things to look forward to in life? Like spending time with your family, doing exciting new things, going on adventures. Since when does food have to be that exciting thing? Yeah, I'm not saying that you shouldn't enjoy food. I'm not saying that at all. But why does it have to be this, pleasure fest every time? Why can't food be fuel? Isn't that what it's supposed to be? So the next time someone comes to you and says, I can't go plant-based because there's not enough variety, you send them over to Spud-Fit, and then you tell him he's pretty much got this excuse.
Smash.